So I want to talk about the streamer university stuff that happened recently. I know I'm a little late to the party, as I usually am with these things, but I have been seeing a lot of the talk where people have been saying that being a streamer is essentially today's version of being a rapper or, wanting to be a pop star. And while I do understand seeing it that way, the more I think about it, I actually think that being a streamer is more like the new hoop dream. And maybe that's my bias. Being an NBA fan, being a sports fan in general, it's hard for me to think of anything without thinking about sports in some way. But it's interesting. I was watching the Hoop Dreams documentary a couple nights ago. It's my fourth or fifth time seeing it all the way through. If you haven't seen it, great documentary. It essentially talks about two kids growing up in inner city Chicago who are scouted to go to this more preppy school out in the suburbs to play basketball for their high school team. And it shows their journeys throughout high school to try and not only get to college, but of course to eventually make it to the NBA. And more specifically, it shows all of the miscellaneous hurdles that can get in a young player's way in pursuit of that dream. Right. So I was watching that documentary and it got me thinking a lot about accessibility and how being a content creator has only gotten more accessible over the years, while it seems like being a professional athlete has gone in completely the other direction. And some may disagree with me on that, but I mean, think about America's biggest leagues and where they are right now. Think about where these leagues are right now. Look at the NBA. They're currently involved in two scandals involving cap circumvention with Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. Clippers have vehemently denied any wrongdoing and any involvement to the point where the owner, Steve Ballmer, felt comfortable enough to go live on ESPN to deny the allegations. And now every day it seems like Pablo Torre is digging something new up that makes it really hard to draw any other conclusion than the Clippers having to have known. And then you have billionaires and these sovereign wealth funds coming in, buying teams and immediately trading away stars, all in the name of what exactly? Saving a little extra money. And where is that money going? What is that money doing other than growing? It you take the Luka trade, you take, the recent trade with Jaylen Brown, where okay, maybe they didn't involve sovereign wealth funds like this new Lakers acquisition, but both were very clearly moves done to with the second apron in mind. They were moves made to save money. They were moves made to increase the bottom line just that little bit more, which, of course, a fan looks at that and thinks to themselves, why? What am I getting with that? Why is my team being sacrificed to increase the profits of an already very profitable product? And that's not even mentioning that there's already been this growing sentiment in NBA circles that it's becoming more of a daddy's money league where, if if you're not the son of a former NBA player, it's becoming harder for people who don't come from that background, or people who don't come from at least a financially comfortable background. It's becoming harder for them to afford the AAU tournaments and afford to be constantly seen by coaches on the national circuit. And then if you make it to college, there's now professional players, grown ass men coming in from Europe, coming in from even the G League. You know, you got players that were drafted into the NBA that are coming back and playing college ball that are competing for your spot. And look, to be clear, players being able to make money in the NCAA is a wonderful thing. It's a great thing. But I think the point can't be avoided that it is more competitive now. And if you're a young kid seeing that in today's world, how does that change your perception of becoming a professional athlete? And then what about the WNBA? I was watching Bill Simmons' podcast the other day, and he mentioned that it seems like every story coming out of the WNBA recently is anything but basketball. You know, it's crazy to me that you can have a player, a rookie, who's in legitimate MVP conversations in Olivia Miles, and somehow the biggest stories to come out of the WNBA recently have been, let me just check my notes here, the right-leaning opinions of a player who, for her career, averages 8 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. That's with me rounding up, by the way. And Enes Kanter. He's been out of basketball for 5 years. Like, what are we doing? And now add to that if you're a kid, right? You're seeing NBA players, you're seeing NFL players, former players, all either making content with streamers or they're going live themselves. You know, recently I remember seeing Le'Veon Bell making a video saying that he was applying for Streamer University. So, I mean, look, you tell me, man. Like, ultimately, I don't blame people for striving for these things, whether it's being a streamer, being a professional athlete, or whatever. You know, sometimes you hear older people say things along the lines of, you know, why does everybody want these flashier dream jobs? You know, we need plumbers, we need electricians, we need CPAs. And I don't say this to sound disrespectful, but I do think that the way that things are right now is almost forcing people to be a little bit more delusional. Think about back in the 90s when Hoop Dreams was filmed. The dream of being a professional athlete was often compared against more secure 9-to-5 jobs because 9-to-5 jobs were seen as more secure. If you fast forward to now, pretty much every industry is competitive. For most roles, people are needing to submit hundreds of applications to even get a look. Like, that's to even be considered, not to get a job, to like get interviews, to get their foot in the door. You know, I remember growing up, it seems like every time you'd watch, you know, a college basketball game or a college football game or whatever, there would be some ad. Most of the time they were from Enterprise Rent-A-Car, I remember, where they'd essentially talk about how, you know, they talk about how many new graduates they would hire every year. And they'd also note that a lot of those graduates played NCAA sports. you don't really see commercials like that anymore because people really aren't trying to hire college graduates. So it's tough. And I think it's people just trying to make the best of their own situation. I think a lot of people were sold, including me. I would say I'm in that generation of people that was sold the idea that you go to college, you get a good education, get good grades, and at the other end, there's the job as the clear payoff. And it's just not like that anymore. So I don't know. I just think if you're going to be a streamer, just don't be like that Chud the Builder guy. He was the worst. Hey everyone. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, and you can listen to full episodes of the podcast wherever you get them. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. The links are all in the description below. Take care.